I am very excited tonight to share with you a product, an art product that is actually very old. By old, I mean it's come from, you'll find it in old antique um, architecture sets and drafting sets, as well as modern. There are versions of these, what's called a ruling pen, that are modern. So let me show you a ruling pen. So this is a ruling pen, and it actually has a little space in between here, and you see the little dial right here allows you to make the space at the very tip here wider and narrower. And it initially was used for making straight lines or circles to do things for architecture. So for instance, here's one that has a little skinny back end to it like that. This is your typical ruling pen. And again, in between here, we're going to load this up with paint. And in between here, you can adjust the width of your line. And not only can you use this by hand, meaning you're going to move it with your fingers in order to get lines or shapes. Um, this piece in particular, one like this, unscrews like this, and this part goes into the little screws in there, goes into a compass. So do y'all remember a compass from when you were a kid in math? This is a compass. Now, this is a cheapo compass, not a fancy schmancy compass, right? But in this one, there's a place for you to put a pencil like that. Unfortunately, this one, you have to have a screwdriver if you want to set it to a particular width, and then you can hold it in place with the screwdriver and make your circles that way. This is a little fancier one from my personal collection that I got from Critter Chops. So I don't know if Critter Chops is in the stream today or not, but I got this piece from Critter Chops, and that's a very precise uh, compass. It has this little wheel right here that allows you to open and close this to get various sizes of circles. But this one only has a space for a little piece of lead right here. And then that goes, there's a little pin right here, and that goes around and makes your circle of whichever size you want. Well, the interesting thing is that there are also compasses similar to this that have an area where you can screw on this tip for the ruling pen and then adjust your lines. Now, a fancy ruling pen is going to have a little dial on it with numbers. I know it can be hard to see the numbers. Hey, what was that? Crazy Junk Art is in the stream. Welcome in, as well as Salmon's Girl. So this has little numbers on it here, and that's awesome if you want to make sure that your lines from project to project are the same width. If you know that you did a project and the width was, let's say, set to a 5 or set to a 7 on this little dial. So the little dial, there's a little line right here that the dial matches up with. And then that tells you how wide apart these are, these little tines at the top. And that is also then how wide your line is going to be when you work with this ruling pen. Now, also, let me screw this back in here so that I've got the handle back on it. They don't all come apart like that. For instance, this one, which is much wider, you see how this part is wider right here? So it's going to hold more ink in it because it's wider. And it'll also give you an interesting, you don't always have to use it right along the tip like this in order to get that skinny line. You can get kind of crazy, which is what I like to do with them. And you can lay it on its side like this instead of on the tip, and then scrape across your paper, and then you'll get some really neat fat lines that way. There are actually some other ruling pens that I don't have yet. Believe it or not, there's an art supply that I don't have yet. I know some of you are shocked, right? And but there are some other interesting ruling pens that have a different shape up here. Instead of just being narrow, where it comes narrow, they come up one side and then they have a little angle, and those let you do some of the very funky type of calligraphy and get big bold strokes with those. But I don't have any of those yet, believe it or not. But this one gives me a nice stroke as well. And you'll notice this one has a little wheel on it, but there are no numbers on the wheel. Can you see that? Let's see if there are numbers on the side. There is only paint on the side because I've used it. And so you've got paint on the side of the wheel, but there are no numbers on the wheel. So this is not one that you would use for being very precise unless you set it where you like to use it and then just left it there all the time. This is another one. Oh, this one actually says on it, made in Switzerland. So right there, made in Switzerland. And then the front says Kern. So the name of the company, the manufacturer here is here on the front, Kern. But this one, it doesn't twist off. I don't know if it pulls off. Does it pull off? It doesn't pull off either. So this one does not come apart. They don't all come apart. And here is another one that has that wideness here. You can see I've been using it. You've got all the black on there. Now, this one does have the numbers on it. Let me put my hand behind it. Maybe it'll focus. Come on, camera, you can do it. Focus. Let me get my face out of there. It looks like it doesn't want to focus on the numbers. But anyway, you can see that there are little numbers there. And on this one, you can see the little mark right there so that I know how wide I'm setting those tines at the very tip right there. By the numbers that I have here. And this is another one that's flat instead of round. And let's see, there should be one more. Yes. So they come in different widths. If you look at this one, this is a much skinnier one. Skinny. So if you're doing things where you want a little more precise line, like skinnier line, you can see some of these are really tiny, like this one. What does that say right there? K&E, it looks like Germany. K&E Company, Germany. So a lot of times precision instruments, especially in the occupied Germany, 1940s and into the 1950s, they made the Germans, and they still do, make some amazing precision instruments. And so this would be a precision instrument as part of your drafting kit. If you were, let's say, going to college for architecture or something, you would absolutely have one of these. But we can do some fun things with it as well as an artist. And that's what I'm here to show you tonight, is how you can have some fun with it as an artist. Now, this one also does not have any numbers on it. So this is a more rudimentary one in terms of set it and forget it or play with it to get just the right line. It doesn't have the numbers on it that some of the other ones do. Now, let me go back to the first one that I showed you where I said that this one unscrews. This one is super fancy. Let me see if it says Swenson on it. It looks like somebody engraved their name on it, like this is my piece of equipment, because this one's really fancy. So the interesting thing here is on the back, there's a little screw right there. And you can set the screw just so that, you see that? There is actually a little groove right here. And on the back of this other half of the tines, there's a little nub right there. And so that helps you to clean it. You see that? How you can clean the inside of this because you can actually get at it. These other ones here are a little more difficult to clean on the inside because this part does not flip open. So of course I figured that out by accident, that this flipped open when I was cleaning it, and I was like, awesome, this is fantastic. Oh, so I'm just going to close this, and it goes click, and then it's ready to be used. But this one's super fancy. I love it. Again, I got this from Critter Chops. So if you are on, we will use them in schools today. Hey, Mr. Asher is with us over on YouTube. So thank you for that comment. Yes, we still use them in schools today. Absolutely. I mean, this is an architecture tool. So it's something that you will see used every day in colleges all over the world, actually, for precision. But we're going to have some fun with it. We're going to be precise, but then we're not going to be precise as well. Hey, Critter Chops, your ears must have been burning. I was just mentioning you and saying that I got these amazing ruling pens from you, and that's what we're going to be working with today. Now, there's another kind of device that is also sometimes called a ruling pen, but it's actually also called a writing pen. And it looks like this. So this is a lot of people call this a letter writing pen. I was always familiar with these as a way that you would sign your oil paintings, because you could use a little bit of your stand oil or your any of your what are called drying oils that you use with oil painting. You could add that to a little bit of your paint and fill this little reservoir here. And then when you tap the tip, it helps to break the little meniscus that's in there and start the ink flowing, or in that case, the oil paint flowing. And you could control better than a brush making a signature or doing specific lines on an oil painting. That's what I was familiar with this device for. But now I've learned that it is also an amazing device for doing hand lettering. Believe it or not, it's really cool for hand lettering. And I'm going to show you some of that using this. Now, this is your standard size, which is about half a millimeter here on the tip. But from Critter Chops, if you're on Whatnot and you don't follow Critter Chops, go follow Critter Chops. Okay, I got this big honking one from Critter Chops. I am so excited. This one is so much fun to play with. So there's what it looks like. There's what that looks like. And you can see it has this little needle on it. So the needles have different size apertures or openings here. And then this one's nice because it has a big bowl here to hold your ink in. But not only ink, you can also use watercolors. So for instance, I've used watercolor just like this that I've shown you many times during my workshops. This is some really cool metallic watercolors from Kuretake. They're called Gansei Tambi. It looks like this. They're starry colors. And this you can just load onto a brush. And I'm going to show you in a little bit how to take that brush and run it across and deposit that paint into here and then draw with it. So that is very exciting. I had fun with that. Now, this little one normally comes with a pin, a little device that, and a cover. I don't know where the pin or the cover are. Trust me, I had them originally, but I don't know where they are now. Oh, and so normally after you've used this device, you would put the little red cover onto here. All right. And then there's a little pin device that you use to push down inside there and clear out this little pin, this little nozzle, if it gets filled. Well, this one right here, this big honkin' one, if you unscrew this part of it, there's the needle. That is the needle that's used to clear this out. So there it is, sticking right out of there. And that's what you use to clear that little spot on the inside of there. And guess what? It also fits down inside this one. So lucky me, right? Because the fact that I lost the pin for this, there's a pin that's inside the handle of this one. The stem screws off to clean it. Right. So you can clean it that way. Yes. Thank you, Critter Chops. But yeah, there you go. There is the pin. This is just so cool. I'm in love with this. Now, because this one is bigger and it has a bigger well right here, you find that the paint kind of gushes out of here. So you have to thicken your paint a little bit more. You have to work with a paint that's a little bit thicker in order for it to work well with this one that has the large bowl. Whereas this one, you can get away with something that's much more fluid, like an ink that you might buy like this, or an ink like this, which is your India ink that I'll be showing you shortly with that. Okay, in the way that I fill these, something that's very handy that I have all over my studio, but of course I'm looking right now and I'm like, okay, where are they? Are the little droppers like this. So these help. It helps to have these. Actually, this nice skinny one came from Critter Chops as well. And you're going to want to suck up your ink into here, and then that helps you to deposit exactly what you need into these little bowls of either one of these. And when you deposit ink into a ruling pen, you're depositing it in between these tines right here. So that's also a way that you can drip it into there. You just have to drip it very carefully, because if you put it in with too much force, it literally forces the ink out of the tip here. Another way is to use a brush. So I have a teeny tiny little brush, and that's how I got my watercolor into here. Was I had watercolor on the brush, and then I ran it across here, the tines, and then it deposits it inside there, which we're going to do together, of course. I'm going to show you how that magic happens. Now let me show you a couple of pieces that I did with this. This is some of the, like where you're pushing it and letting it spatter and having fun doing lettering with these types of devices. So often people think of these ruling pens as being for straight lines or precise curves and things like that. But from an artistic standpoint, you can use them to do some fun and funky calligraphy. Now you're noticing here a super skinny line, and then here a fat line. So I'm going to show you how I did that using the same pen. I didn't change the pen to do that. Those lines came from the same pen. And then what the ruling pens are well known for, of course, is making lines like this, right? Doing patterning and that type of thing, getting your straight lines. So I picked out a project for us where we're going to be using a ruler, and there are tricks to using rulers. We're going to use a French curve, and we're also going to use a regular ruler, but it helps. There are some tricks with the rulers. Now, I mentioned earlier that I had taken some of this Ganzi Tambi watercolor paint in those beautiful golden colors. And when I start testing out something new, this is what happens right here. So you see all the scribbling and the lines and the swirls and all of that. That's what happens when I first start to play with the device. And so you can see all of these big lines, and I wanted to see how far it would go. So I do lots of scribbles. And then you see the gold there. It's super shimmery. Okay, so that gold was done with this writing pen and these Ganzi Tambi paints right here. So I will definitely be showing you how to do that. But, oh, I had so much fun with that. And you know, I love pieces like this that just are crazy because nothing goes to waste in my studio. You know that I'm going to collage on top of this and I'm going to create something else with it. So, nope, no beautiful piece of watercolor paper or canvas goes to waste in my studio because then I can just cover it all up and do some more fun stuff with it. So, but that gold just really impresses me. I love that. All right, let me see if I have anything else to show you. Yeah, this was another one where I was messing around with letters, different types of letters and playing. So give yourself permission to play, especially when you're learning a new technique with a new tool, right? So I wanted to show you some inspiration. You know how I always like to show you a book or I like to show you other artists. In this particular case, I went to Pixabay, I went to Upsplash, and I went to Hexels in order to look for a trellis. So trellises together with flowers, because that's what I'm going to demonstrate for you today using these various ruling pens. And so what I wanted to show you, for instance, this is Pexels right here. You'll see the spelling in just a second. Pexels. So there is copyright-free art on those sites I mentioned, Unsplash, Pexels, and Pixabay. Now, on my YouTube video, when this show is over, I go back and in the comments I write, I put the links to any sites or any artists or any books that I mentioned during the workshop. So you'll be able to find it on YouTube under my lives. So it'll be a past show under my lives on YouTube. You'll be able to just click and go through to those sites where you can get copyright-free images. But there's a caveat. The caveat is it called Cha-ching tool like they use in batik? Tanda Rose, excellent question. It's similar to that. It's very similar to the, what do they call it? A janting, I think they call it. The difference is that the janting has a lot more of a ability to hold the wax, and it's wider down here. It's not so tiny, and it has a much bigger bigger nozzle. Because I have those. Those I do have for doing fabric painting and batiking. Oh, you're quite welcome. This one, if you look it up, it might be called a writing tool. And that's what I was seeing it, lettering tool, something like that. And after the show, when I go back to YouTube, I will also have a link to these items in the description of my YouTube video if you want to find the item and click through and purchase one. Okay, so what I wanted to tell you about when you're looking on a site like Pexels or any of the other ones, be very careful because they put copyrighted images on their promotion pages. So here, for instance, this is Pexels. There's a picture up here and a picture down here and a picture here and a picture here, and those are all the copyright-free Pexel images. But notice right here in the middle, and oftentimes at the top of the page, the website, and the bottom of the website as well, there will be images, which you see here. These are iStock. See where it says the little iStock? These are copyrighted images that they want you to buy. So I tell you that because when you're an artist, if you're going to make artwork that you're then going to license or you're going to sell, it's important that if you're looking for reference material, that you don't make an exact copy of an image that is a copyrighted image, because these are images that a photographer has licensed to iStock. And iStock, or sometimes it's Adobe stock, You have to look for those images that are actually the images you have to pay for. And so I didn't want to work with a paid for image. If you have an Adobe account, like I have an Adobe account, I can go into my Adobe account and I can, for free, download a certain number of images from their stock images every month. Now, I generally don't do that. I don't take the time to log in and do all that. I generally just go to the free sites. But I want you to be aware that these are not copyright free images if you see this near them. And also often, and I can't tell, let me look in this picture. Now this is a little bit misleading because normally if there's an ad, this would be considered an ad. Normally there'll be a watermark right here and it would say iStock if it's a copyrighted image. But as you can see here, they just put this here telling you sponsored by, right? Sponsored photos. Those are copyright images. And it even says right here that you can obtain these images by logging into iStock and getting a discount using their code, right? So there's a clue that these are images that you pay for. So you don't have to do that. At least not at the stage or the type of artwork that I'm doing right now. You can either take your own photos, or if you don't have a photo in a pinch, I go out to Pexels, Unsplash, and Pixabay, and I search for and print various types of images that are similar to what it is that I want to create, not exact. You could, because this is copyright free, you could do a replica of this in paint, but I recommend that, hey, a photographer went out and took their time and used their skill and created this image. So if you're going to use one of their images, I think it's better for the artistic community if you use it as inspiration for something that you want to do. Now, here's another one right here. This is more what I was looking for. See how there's a trellis right here and we have a bunch of straight lines. That's awesome. We have straight lines here. We have these crisscross lines. We have these lines down here. And we have flowers. So this is fantastic. Just what I want to do. But I'll probably make a few little changes. It's not going to look exactly like what you see here. But the idea is to get your inspiration from these copyright-free images. They're out there for us. And if you're a good photographer and you have interesting images that you have taken, consider putting them up on those copyright-free platforms for other artists to see and use as inspiration. And plus, you may even make some tips because when you download those items, they highlight who the artist was, who the photographer was, and then they offer for you to be able to give that person a tip. So you never know, you may make a tip or two if you go ahead and put your artwork onto one of those copyright-free sites. So I already mentioned watercolor as something that we were going to be doing, working with in these tools. The other thing that's the main ink is an India ink, and India ink is permanent when it's dry. Watercolors like this are not permanent when they're dry. If you get them wet again, you can slish slosh and move them around. But India ink will be permanent when it's dry, which is fantastic. I like to use the India ink to create like a framework for a painting, and then let it dry, and because it dries fast. And then you can go in and put in your watercolor right over top of it, and it doesn't reactivate it, which is the beautiful thing about using an India ink. And there are lots of different companies. Soho is from Jerry's Artorama. You've got Pelican is another company. Oh, this one I think is from Germany. Oh, it's covered up, made in somewhere. But it's somewhere overseas. because it's in German. Yeah, it's in German, so it's somewhere in that area in Europe it's made. Actually, the ink is made in China. Sometimes, actually, instead of being called India ink, it's sometimes called China ink. So China ink and India ink should be the same thing. They should be. Hey, welcome in, Wendy Pop Collects. Hello, hello. We are doing a workshop today on working with ruling pens, And then after the workshop, then I offer some of my handmade items for sale. So the sale generally starts around 7:30 p.m., sometimes a little earlier, sometimes a little later. And right now, I'm actually going to be teaching a workshop. So let me show you some of the other watercolors. So I've shown you before, these are Beam watercolor paint stones, they're called. So any of your other watercolors that you might already have on hand, these are ones from Boulder Color. And so any of your typical watercolors will work with these techniques that we're going to do today. Now also, this is going to be the giveaway. It doesn't look like much right now, but it will by the end of the show. I'm going to turn this into a greeting card. This is actually acrylic paint, leftover acrylic paint, because what? I have a no paint left behind policy. And so I had some leftover acrylic paint from a project I was doing, and I put it through a stencil and see how it looks pretty with the flowers. And I thought, oh, we're going to make a little trellis around this as we're working, and then that will become the giveaway for today. So yes, you can use this India ink over top of or beside this acrylic, and you'll be fine. It'll work with that. Now, watercolor, if I put watercolor over top of this, the watercolor will be repelled by the acrylic paint, because acrylic paint is a type of plastic, right? And then the watercolor would fall down behind. So I might want to put some green in there, right? Because the green would give just a soft background to these roses and the little flowers here. So we're going to play with that a little bit later. Let me tell you about the paper that works well with these ruling pens and this kind of ink. And that is, well, what I like to use anyway. You could use regular old, like this is just regular old printer paper. But the printer paper is not very robust, and you could have that India ink soak through, and you probably don't want that with some of these techniques, because you're actually putting a good amount of ink on your surface. So my favorite paper, type of paper to use for this is a smooth paper. And there's a smooth paper called, there are a couple of different names. There's a Bristol paper. That's a good illustrator's paper. So you can use your graphite pencils, you can use charcoal. It's really better for pencil and ink lines like that for illustrations, and that's called Bristol. Then there's also vellum. So vellum has a, oh, how do I describe it? It's kind of like what you would see calligraphy on. So the paper is a little bit more, it's very smooth and excellent for calligraphy. My favorite, because I like to incorporate watercolor along with what I'm doing most of the time, is hot press watercolor paper. So this is the Fabriano, and it is a hot press paper. Let me see, it says it right here, hot press. What that means is that when it, hey, Gabriel Lee Arts, I'm glad you could come in early today. I see you over there on Whatnot. When they make hot press paper, it's the same paper pulp. For instance, with this Fabriano Studio, it's the same paper pulp as they're making their cold press, which means it has a little texture, and their rough, which means it has a lot of texture. And then they literally iron, go through these hot rollers, the hot press paper. That's why it's called hot press, because they literally hot press it and get it to be nice and flat, those cotton fibers, because this paper has a, let's see, this one's 25% cotton for this one right here. And you'll see the how much cotton is in it right there. So if you're working with a good quality artist paper, um, it'll have generally some amount of cotton in it for your finer artworks. This one happens to be a 25%. A lot of artists swear by 100% cotton, but when I'm just goofing around, then 25% is fine, right? And especially when you're experimenting. So we're going to be using a piece of this paper because it's, oops, that is not that paper. I can tell because it wasn't thick enough. And so this is the 140 pound, meaning it's a nice thick paper and it's super smooth. So it'll take these marks beautifully. Let me see here. Put this here. So we are going to go ahead over top of the table and we are going to get started with actually playing. I love the playing part. Okay, fabulous. So these are my details. If you would like to find me on Instagram, I'm at Dietz Art, Facebook, my website. As I mentioned earlier, on my website, I have um, I have links to the paints and the tools that I work with. I don't sell the paints and tools on Whatnot. I sell finished artwork on Whatnot. But if you are interested if you're an artist and you're interested in finding the tools that I mentioned during my workshops, then you can go to my website, which is dietzart.com, and you'll be able to find my tools under supply links. Um, and then let's see if you're on YouTube right now. Hey, stay home to shop. Welcome in. Hello, hello. I see you over there on Whatnot. Um, let's see. Just uploaded. So stay home to shop said he's ready for some artistic inspiration after some hard work. Well, great. We're going to have a good time together then. Oh, I wanted to let you know, though, if you are on YouTube, you can pop over to Whatnot if you like for the sale later. And all you have to do is scan the QR code at the top of your screen, or you're going to go into the description of the video on YouTube. And that way you'll be able to click through and come right into the show. And if you are new to YouTube, you will be able to have a $15 credit for anything you want to purchase later, which is awesome. And also on Whatnot, you are able to give tips. But on YouTube, you're not able to just give tips. I'm not set up for that right now. And so if you are on YouTube and you enjoy the workshop and you'd like to give me a tip, you can go to ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com. And I'm at Tristina Dietz Art there. And you can throw me a tip there. I always love tips. All right, let's put that away. So this is that beautiful, smooth Fabriano Studio watercolor hot press paper. But like I said, you could also use Bristol paper. Hey, if you have marker paper, oftentimes the marker paper will work as well. All right, so let me show you how you put, this is your basic standard ruling pen right here. Okay, no numbers on here, just your two parts right here. Now, what you're going to notice is that one part is curved, so this side is curved and this side is straight, right? Do you see that? So there's a reason for that, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute. But what we're going to do first is we have to load this sucker up with some paint. So what I'm going to do is I want to protect my work surface because when you're loading these with paint, you can end up getting paint around, all right? Paint in different, it may spatter. So I like to work over top of a different surface, and this is my typical palette paper that I use all the time. And let me move that out of the way. And so in order to load this, we're going to, now this is my India ink, but what I do is I put my India ink in a smaller container like this, because this is what I use for dip pens, right? Now I am going to get my hands very dirty because this is typical. Let me see where a pair of gloves are, because, oh my gosh, my hands get so dirty. And if you weren't here earlier, I was mentioning that this week I'm going to Illinois to do a demonstration with some folks at Blick. Dick Blick, some of my favorite folks. I love the folks at Jerry's. I love the folks at Dick Blick. I haven't met the folks yet from Cheap Joe's Art Stuff. They're also very good. Yeah, because I tend to get ink everywhere. So here we go. Now, I like to work from the smaller bottle. See what I'm telling you? Oh, yes. Typical. Okay. So, instead of working from the big bottle, I like to keep the lid on the big bottle and then work from a small bottle. That way your bottle doesn't dry out too fast. And that's really important, especially I have huge bottles of this ink as well from Speedball. And so I like to keep the ink fresh, and I use it in a small container like this. Teeny tiny little container. Now, when I'm in a hurry, I don't recommend this, but when I'm in a hurry, I just stick it right in there like that. And now what you're going to see is right in between those tines right there, there's some ink in there. But you also have ink all over the bottom here and all over the top here. And when you wipe that off, oftentimes you take the ink that's on the inside of there with it. Now, I've done this a lot, and so plus you waste the ink, right? That's on the outside. So it's better to use the dropper or to use a brush to load it, I find. But in a pinch, I just sit there and dip if I'm just drawing. If I'm going to use a ruler, it's better if your flat side is clean using the ruler. Okay, so now you can see the ink inside there. And depending on how I adjust this little roller will give me different line sizes. So let's go ahead. And now you would think that a pen, you would use it like this with that part up. No, you have to use it on its side so it'll release it from the tip. So here we go. And it helps to hold it up at about a 30 to 45 degree angle. So there is my line with this setting. Now I can make it a little more narrow by pinching it together with this. Let's see if I can get it to flow. There. Tiny line. I'll pull this up close to you in a second. And then, so that was adjusting this little knob to make it more narrow. And now I'm going to adjust it to make it wider still. Now the trick is when you do it wider, you may need a thicker ink, because if the ink is I love watching your YouTube tutorials. Thank you, Stay Home to Shop. I appreciate that. So if it's too wide and your paint is too fluid, your paint can just blop right out. So there is something to be said for the thickness of your ink. Now this one, if you look, the paint is not, or the ink is not all the way down to the end. So what I'm going to do on here, not on my paper, on here is I'm going to tap it. You see a little dot just came out. So that means that the ink is now down in the tip. And I'm going to hold it at that 30 to 45 degree angle to get it started. There we go. And that's an even thicker line now. So let me bring that over to you so I can show you. So there are the different line widths that I got from that. Like I said, you have to use it on its side. You don't use it, as you would think, you don't put this little knob up. Now there's still a little bit of ink in there. I'm actually going to bring it back together just a little bit. Nope, not further. Together. There we go. And now I'm going to use a ruler. But you don't want to use just any ruler. You don't want the ink from this seeping down underneath your ruler. So if you have a flat ruler, that's what's going to happen as you run it along the ruler. What you want is you want a ruler like this, old-fashioned one that even has the metal, right? So there's a metal lip so that it's not touching your paper. Or you want one that has the cork on the bottom so it lifts it up. And so this, there's a flat side I mentioned and a rounded side, right? So the flat side is the side that goes next to your ruler. Let's get it started because I've been yammering and so it's not at the tip. Come on, you can do it. There it goes. Now I do this, and as long as there's ink in there, I get a beautiful straight line. That's why they love this for architectural drawing, right? You have your ruler, you have your ruling pen. That's why it's called a ruling pen. And it just runs right along that edge, and you get beautiful straight lines. Oh, so gorgeous. And of course, you can use if you need preciseness, you can use a protractor, which tells you the percentage, and then you can get exact angles off of your straight line as well by using a protractor and then putting your like this. Now that is most of the way empty. So what I had just shown you was literally just dipping it inside there. Let's do it with a little brush. Actually, this is probably a better one. So you want a brush that's a little bit fluffy so it'll hold a lot of ink, but small enough to come together. And now I'm going to, how am I going to do this so you can see it? Maybe like this. I'm going to run it across the edge here. Now, see, I have to hold it like this. I won't be able to hold it really close. So I'm going to angle my ruling pen down so that gravity will pull the ink down. And then I just run my brush, rake it across the two tines right there. And what that does is that deposits ink. So can you see that now? It just deposited ink inside there. A lot of it as well. So this I'll just set aside because you use it over and over and over again, right? But that gave you a nice fill without getting a bunch of paint here on that straight edge, right? So that then I can, here is my palette paper again. So I'm just going to make sure that the ink is flowing. Come on, ink, get down there. There we go. The ink is now ready to flow. And I hold down my ruler. Oh, gorgeous. Now there's still ink in there, but it ran out, which is a little annoying. But normally I would not have moved my ruler. I would just have this pad next to me so that I could just do this again to get the ink flowing. Get it down there. Yep. Now it's in there. And now I can go back to ruling my line like that. Okay? So that's how you can do your straight lines. And of course, if you've got angles that you need to do, now this is wet, so you do it from, this one should be dry already, yes. So let me just do an angle like this. Now I want to turn it again so the flat side is there. Just make sure that it's ready to run. Is there any ink coming out? Nope. Okay, I'm tapping over on my other pad there. And let's see if it's going to come out now. Sometimes you have to really change the angle of it to get it to come out. There we go. Wow, like that. So now you can get your angles. How do you find your show ideas? Stay home to shop. Were you here earlier when I was talking about going to the online, like Pixabay and stuff like that? Is that what you mean, like show ideas like this, or do you mean show ideas as in, what the heck am I going to show tonight? Because if it's, what am I going to show tonight? I have a notes document in my phone that whenever ideas come to me, I just throw it in my notes. And then when it's time to set up my workshops, I just go back through and look at my notes and then decide what to share with y'all. And sometimes it's a repeat, but if it's a repeat of the product that we're using, it's generally a new application of it. I'm using it in a different way. Okay, so that is so much fun. That's doing it where you're trying to get precise lines. And so, for instance, if I was doing the trellis, like in this picture right here, you see the trellis right here? That's like making little diamonds, right? Now I don't have enough ink in here, so I'm gonna have to reload it. And I'm gonna do what I normally don't do, which is I'm gonna reload it over the paper, but just for expediency purposes. All right, there we go. It is full again. And I'm just gonna get that little bit of excess off of there. And let me just run it like this. This is dry already, so if I hit it with a brush, it probably would not be completely dry, but it's dry enough to draw over top of. Okay, so let me get a steep angle here to start. Just getting started. You can do it. Come on. Okay. See, when I sit here and talk too much, then the paint in the tip gets dry. All right, you. It's what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear that out because it's a little bit dried in the tip. Yep, I can see there's a little tiny bit. There was a little tiny bit dry in the tip because I've been yammering and not actually using it. So by doing that, and then I put my paper towel in the middle here and run it through there to clean that out. So now there's no ink down in, there's no like little tiny bit holding it. All right, so now if I put ink in it, it should actually work. The ink she is deposited. All right, let's try that again. Remember, just wipe the flat side to be sure you don't get it all over your ruler. There you go. So you see how I have a beautiful matched up angle here? And that's how you get those little diamonds for your, oh, see, that just used all the ink I just deposited. Okay, let's do this again. Just going to deposit some ink in there. All right, switch it over, do it on the other side. Nice. Like that. Bring it down. Do it again. Fab. So you can see how you're going to get your little diamonds and your little angles in there, which is fabulous. And then every so often, and I just used all the ink there. Now I have it pretty wide, and I have the lines being pretty thick so you can see it, and that's why it just ran out of ink very quickly. But this is a skinny one, right? This is a skinny ruling pen. What about these? This is a big honkin' ruling pen. You see how wide that is? So this one, there's a lot, it'll hold a lot of paint in there, a lot of ink. And let me bring it down like I said earlier, the nice thing is this has a little mark right here and then numbers on it. So I can be precise in terms of how wide I want it by using those various numbers. So let's deposit some paint in this one right here. And this is going to take a lot more paint. See? Wow. It's not even at the tip right now. It's just filling the belly. It'll start to move down as a gravity as it moves down. Okay, now I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to make sure to fill this side. Oh yeah, this sucker's holding lots of ink, lots and lots of ink. So if you weren't here earlier, what I'm doing, oops, see why I do it over top of, usually over top of a piece of palette paper? Because that's what happens as you're filling. It happens all the time. Okay, so let me clean the flat side, the bottom there. And then let's see how wide this line is right here. Well, that's a big old fat line. That is a fat line. Now you see what it did there? It's in the very beginning, it some of the paint blopped out of the end there. So make sure you clean this. And of course, the way that I normally avoid that is with my palette paper, making sure that I get it started on the palette paper like that first, and then I go to my paper. And that way it doesn't do that. And it's completely empty now. Now, again, there's paint all over, there's ink all over both sides of this because I do this all the time. I buy the ink in the big sizes, the 8 ounce or the 16 ounce. So I don't worry too much about cleaning this off like that and then going to it. So here, I'm going to take this and I'm going to make sure it's moving. It's just like when you're doing calligraphy, I use a different piece of paper. That's what they call a blotter. Let me just grab a little piece of paper here. So they'll have a piece of blotter paper next to them, and they make sure that it's started before they go on to their work, right? So you can also do that. You can have a blotter. Let's put this right here. Let's see if we can do this without it going everywhere. There we go. Like that. So that's how you're going to draw your lines, either parallel or not. And that is now empty. So usually when I clean it, I have some water here. I just stick it in the water. You don't want to leave them in the water because it is metal. It is stainless steel, so it should be okay. But I try to be responsible with my tools. Okay, so let's wipe that off. Don't worry if you don't get all the black off. Don't worry. It is what it is. You know what? If you're actually using your art supplies, which it's fabulous. I'm so glad when I see people with art supplies that look like they've been used. Now there's that little dab of ink right there, right? I'm going to take this little brush that I had and I'm going to get it wet. And you know what? I just take that and I use it to my advantage, and I do designs or drawings, or I add a lot of water and I turn it into a gray. I might use a larger brush, because if I get a bigger brush, then what I can do is I can end up getting a nice gray wash with it. So do you see the gray that's coming out there? So because what I'm doing is I'm not an architectural student and I'm not trying to be precise. I take advantage of the circumstances that I'm given and I play with it in order to just riff off of a background. to create a background like that, or bring in other paint colors. But that's how I handle a block. Okay, let me show you these other pens. So I'm going to start with the little one right here, and we can do the same thing. Oops, hold on just a second. I have a rogue brush over here. So I'll take some of the ink here. Again, I normally will do this over top of my either a piece of blotter paper or over top of my palette paper. What happens is the more full you make this, the more likely it is to drip from the tip. Okay, so if it's overly full, it's going to drip. All right, there we go. So now this little well right here is full of ink. And what I do, you can either put it on your finger like this or tap it like this. Come on. Okay, so if it doesn't start to flow, you either don't have enough ink in there, the ink is too thick, or you may need to clear the tip. So remember I said this type of writing pen is going to come with a needle. So, ooh, that makes a fun line. There we go. Now it's working. So let me clean that. I don't want that to stay dirty. And then now we can write. The trick when you write with these is that you barely want to touch the paper. That's the trick. If you touch the paper too hard, if you're too hard on touching the paper, it literally will cut a groove into your paper and it won't work right. So you really want to have a very light touch. Now, once you've done a word, like here, I've done the word hello, hello. The fun thing with this is you can go back over your lines and very easily thicken certain lines just by, again, gently and lightly depositing some more ink here. It very easily deposits more ink. Let's do the L over here. So I'm just adding a little bit more to fatten, so you can fatten certain areas very easily. I'm going to show you up closer in just a moment. So I'm just adding it right over top of where I already went and outside of where I already went. So it gives you an opportunity to get pretty precise in your lettering and in how you fatten certain areas of letters. Now this is the little one. Let's use the big one. And this one, let's see if I can put some of the ink back in here or not. I don't know if any came back in there. But just like with the ruling pen, it's swished around in the water. And you can put it on a paper towel like this. And then use the ink. Use this little guy right here to make sure that that is clear. All right. So that one's pretty clean. Let's use the big one. This one is so fun. Let me make sure this time that this is clear before I put ink in there. Yes, it's clear. Okay, we'll put this back together. Now, I know from using this that this India ink is a little bit too thin for the liking of how big this reservoir is. So what we're going to do is we are going to use some of this paint. The gold paint that is so beautiful. Okay, so I don't want to use that one. right there. What I'll do is I'll use this one. I just went into a little bit cleaner water because I don't want to put black water in my watercolor here. So I'm going to pick one of these. Let's do, maybe this one will show up better. So this is called a watercolor pan. So the paint is dry in there, and I have to add a bunch of water to it in order to resuspend the paint. And I want to be sure that it's not too thin. I want it to be almost milky consistency before I try to fill this. And now what I'm going to do is take this and just drag it across there to deposit the paint inside. Let's do it again. Pick up some more paint on the brush. So you need a brush that's kind of thirsty when you do this because you want the brush to hold a lot of paint. Can you see that okay? I'm just depositing paint inside there. Let's see. Ooh, it's looking good. Let's get a little bit more. There, stay out of the way. Okay, so we're going to deposit a little bit more here. You're constantly going back and forth adjusting like how dry and how wet it is in this process. If you don't want to do this with watercolor, I'll show you another technique that's a little bit easier in just a second here. Okay, so inside the well there is some paint, and already it's starting to come out. You see there how, remember how I said you can do this with your finger? It's already starting to come out. Yay! So let's set this aside, put my brush aside. Now I have a big big bubble on the end there. There we go. And now it should be ready to write or draw. So here we go. You can see it against the black. Let me do it against the black here. I'm going to do a big leaf. So you don't have to just write with it. You can also draw with it. But this gives you another way besides a dip pen, because with something like watercolor like this, a dip pen would not work very well with that. You would have to do a lot of hydration to get that ink to flow well enough to pick it up on a dip pen. But here you can just deposit the ink inside here and then do your drawings. I love using the gold and silver on the dark dramatic backgrounds. It looks good on the white as well. But you see how smooth it is? Look at that. Look at that. Can you see the gold? Let's see if you can see the gold sparkle there. This is so fun. Oh my gosh. This is so fun to use. Up. You'll know when you need to recharge it because it'll stop coming out. It'll stop flowing so easily. Now, if you like to do like handwritten greeting cards and stuff, I like this big one, but where you're gonna write your words. Do this. See how it just flows. So that was happy, like happy birthday. And then you would go back in and thicken certain areas, thicken certain letters, right? Because that's how you do it with even if you're using a pen. You go in here, you fatten certain things. Super easy with this. Super easy. All right, so I'm going to clear this out, and we're going to put some acrylic ink in here. So this was using watercolor and depositing it with a brush. And before I switch to another color, let's see. What is that tool called? Okay, Shauna's Treasures in Art. I think you're referring to this one. I knew it as a ruling pen, but I've seen it online as a lettering pen. Okay, so, um, but I mean, I always knew it as a ruling pen, and in the beginning, I was saying that I used to use it for. I used to see it used for signing oil paintings, believe it or not, because you would liquefy with a little bit of your oil mediums, your paints, your oil paints, put it in here, and then it would give you either precise drawing on your oil painting or your signature for your oil painting. But then I learned that you can also use them for really cool lettering and drawing on your artwork. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, just another tool, right? Oh, all right. So let's see, the deep gold. That's kind of the color we have now. Let's see, there's some silver, but you won't be able to see the silver. Let's go back to gold here. This is like a bright gold. So this is Amsterdam inks, and that is an acrylic ink, but it's specific. It shows it can be used in a technical pen, an airbrush, a dip pen, or a brush. So super cool. And what's nice too is it comes with a dropper. So that makes it really easy to fill this reservoir, right? So let's just fill the reservoir up right here. Ta-da! That was quick and easy. Of course, you have to decide, is watercolor better for your application? Is acrylic better for your application? Okay, now I'm seeing if I can, okay, it's beginning to come out. Let's see if I can get it to come out. Yeah, it's beginning to come out now. So I would normally do what I just did on a blotter piece of paper or on my palette paper here to get it started. And so then the same thing here. You can, what I like about using this kind of ruling pen or this kind of lettering pen as opposed to this type of ruling pen is the ruling pen is better suited for straight lines. And although you can do curved lines with it as well. Hey, Fart Queen, welcome in over on Whatnot. um, but this type of ruling pen is you just hold it very lightly in between your fingers and you can just do crazy designs with it. You can do anything with it. Anything that you would think that you would do with a pencil. The only difference is I love that how lightly you hold it because then you're encouraged to be more loose with what it is that you're doing. Some more, another swirl right here. Believe it or not, I actually like the watercolor better. But it all depends on what type of surface you're working on. So if you look at this part right here, oops, I ran through the black and got a little bit of black on it. It wasn't quite dry. But you can see those flowy lines in here. And that's why this is really nice to write with, to write like this. It gets a little, it takes a little getting used to know what to do, like how to hold it, because it's like using what's called an offset uh, dip pen. Because an offset dip pen, you have the pen, and then the head of the pen comes in at an angle off to the side. This one is kind of like that because you're not actually writing with it like a pen. Let me see if I can do. Let's just sort of do a bit of a mushroom right here. So you can draw with it. I like that it gives you a very jagged edge. Some people don't like that. Some people want to be more precise. If you want to be more precise, you use a pen like this, which we're going to do in just a little bit here with that trellis painting. Okay, so fun, 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 fun. You see the little mushroom right there? So because I have a big well right here, and this one, I can just keep going, keep going. There's a lot, a lot of ink in there. And just bear in mind, the ink that I just put in is an acrylic, water-based acrylic ink. So when it dries, it's permanent. You can work right over top of it, which is great if you want to combine some line work in various types of inks of acrylic and then go over top of it with watercolors. These lines will not move because they are acrylic. Okay, I'm going to clean that. Ah, there we go. And then again for this one, there is our little needle. We're going to put the needle through there. Make sure that that's nice and clean. There we go. Unobstructed. Ready for the next time that I want to put some ink on that one. Okay. Now, there's another amazing use for this type of a pen and the ruling pen. And that is, well, there are two more. And that is to use it with a masking fluid for watercolor and to use it with a gilding paste sizing, meaning the glue that you use for gilding pastes. So these are excellent to use with a ruling pen rather than a brush because you will ruin your brushes when you use these with the brushes. But if you use it on the metal, easy peasy to clean up. So what we're going to do is we're going to, oh, I wish this was dry. Let's see. Let's just do this to get it dry. Because the beautiful thing about papers, good quality papers like this, is you can literally flip it over and work on the other side. Even cold press watercolor papers you can do that with. So what I want to do is I want to take that picture. Oh, you know what? Before we do that, let's do some words, some other words. So these words that are a lot more expressive were done with this big fat ruling pen. So let me show you this one. And notice the red color. What the red color is another type of India ink. So I've shown you before Bombay, Dr. P.H. Martin's Bombay inks. So the link to these is available on my website under the supply links. And there are two sets. There's a set number 1 and a set number 2. This one is the set number 2. I liked the sepia that's in this one, and the Van Dyke brown is a really good brown too. And then there's a terracotta. So, you know, both sets are fabulous. So let's use something different from that. Let's use maybe the aqua ink right here. And the interesting thing about this set, if you get the large set like this, is they give you the little wells right here that you can put the ink into and then dip your pen in. But we're not going to do that right now. Okay. So because the beautiful thing is this has a dropper to it, right? So let's shake this up very well. Hey there, Chris Dapper. Welcome in, welcome in. I'm showing you how to use ruling pens today. All right, so here's this nice big fat one. And because I have a dropper, let's do this the right way. And I've got my palette paper. So I'm going to hold this at an angle and drip some ink into here. Let's see, how's it going? How's it going? Come on, ink, inkity ink. I'm going to flip it over. And I'm going to fill it some more. Like I said, you know if it's overfilled, if it drips out. That looks pretty good. All right, oh, it just dripped out. Okay, there's a big blob of ink here. What that tells me is that this is a very fluid ink and my line is a little too far apart. The two tines at the end are too far apart. So I'm going to turn this little wheel to bring it closer together. There we go. So that should be better. I do always have a little paper towel next to me. That's better. That's better. Now I am going to need to put a little bit more paint in there, a little bit more. Now this ink is actually an India ink. This Bombay is an India ink. It just has color instead of being black. All right, cool. There we go. Now let's do some lettering. Some of that fun type of lettering you see there. Okay, so now this is where you really have to get to know your ruling pen and know how the ink comes out. So I'm going to do the word the. So I'm going to do a thin line down. And then instead of drawing a thin line, I'm going to go across, like this, with a very low angle to the paper. And that will give me a thicker line. Do you see that? Right? Woo. And then, so that's doing the word the. So let's do the H here. And then the E here. Every time I go to the side, I deposit a lot more ink. So, and it is out of ink. So let's quickly do this and put some more ink in there. Actually, I'm going to soak up some of the ink that got deposited here by accident. You see there? It's not going to waste. There we go. So there's some ink in there. So with the E, I'm just going to bring it across like this. I love the bold lines when you go across with the pen instead of straight down with the pen. Okay, pulling a little bit more in there. Plus, I'm going to deposit some with my dropper right in here. Just filling it with a little bit more. Let's make sure it's going. Oh, there's a lot coming out. Okay, so I'm going to flip it over. And then we're going to do heart. So I'm going to bring it sideways up. When I do straight down, I get a thin line. Let me push this up a little bit so y'all can see it better. Hold on. So this, bring this up there. So it's more in camera for you. So anytime I go to the side, I get a thick line. When I come straight down, I get a thin line. Right? I'm going to go to the side for the E, straight down, across. That's an E. Now it's almost empty. Yep. So on almost every letter, when you're lettering, you have to add new ink. So that's where it's helpful to have these small ones like this, is you can just dip. If you're doing this kind of lettering, like what's in here, you don't care if there's drips and happy accidents / mistakes. So let me do this one over top of the bottle. Put some more ink in there. I saw one gentleman on a YouTube video, and he had multiple bottles of ink in front of him, and he would just dip from one to the other to the other to the other as it would empty and get different colors. H-E-A-R, and then T. So there's heart, and there was a big blob there, and I can add more blobs by spilling the ink here too. Let's see if there's any more ink here to its spill. I can pick some up from here and then blot more. So to me, doing that type of lettering is just very expressive. I love how expressive that is. And then on this one, I actually did the heart here with a brush. So I just dipped my brush into the exact same ink and then made a heart here. But all the letters were done with either this pen or this pen. I don't remember which one I used. One of the two. Actually, it's this pen because there's a bunch of paint left on there, red paint, so I used that one. But you can see how you can get these very expressive letters, and then afterwards I went like this, and I got many drips. And I like the ability to get super loose like that with my lettering. And there are a lot of other ways to letter with the ruling pens that there are videos on YouTube that show you how to use your ruling pen to do various types of letters. I prefer to use them more artistically, and so that's what we're going to do right now. Let's do this. Ooh, that's kind of cool. I love discovering new things by accident. If you look here, where the ink was wet, it gave sort of a background, and the letters are still showing up, like H-E-A-R-T. Isn't that fun? I will just do a collage right on top of that. Yeah. Okay. So here, let's get a little more purposeful. And we're going to do these. We're not going to get too crazy. What time is it? 7 o'clock. Okay. So, I just want to show you how I would begin to lay that all out and use the drawing gum. So let's use a pencil and some sort of pencil. Let's see here. And so for a piece like this, notice that it's all your lines are at an angle like this. They're not straight across the page like this. And I love that. That's something to look for compositionally. And actually next week, I'm going to be talking about composition in artwork, what to look for in what's a pleasing composition. So in this particular piece, the lines go like this. They don't go straight across the page. So that adds some interest. So I'm going to start by drawing these boxes, right? Or just draw a line here that represents those boxes, the beginning of those boxes. And then we come up here, right here. We're going to come up. Now, the interesting thing is, even though your angle may be this way, your angles here are going to be straight up and down. Isn't that funny how that works? So your angles here are not going to be catty corner. They're going to be straight up and down, even though this is at an angle. So one of the boxes is going to go here. And now this part of the box is going to be at the same angle as this. So that's one box there. And then there's going to be another box here. And inside here, there'll be a bunch of flowers. And inside here, there'll be a bunch of flowers. I'm just giving you a basic concept. Now over here, we are going to have another box going in the same direction. It's going to come up and across here. It's going to come over here. And again, you're going to have a bunch of flowers. And you're going to have another box down here. So that's just to give you an idea of the composition here with the flowers. Okay. And then here, this is a wooden pot, but I decided I wanted to make mine sort of an earthenware pot. So I'm just going to do it rounded instead of square. Of course, it's going to come around like this. So I've got an earthenware pot. I've got some planters. And then right behind the planters, I have this trellis. So let's bring the trellis up here. Oh, this comes back, by the way. So let's bring the trellis. Let's bring the edge of the window here. And then the other edge of the window is over here. So this is how I take a photograph and build a composition out of it. And then we have the gorgeous trellis here. Now what you're going to notice is over here, which is further away, these are closer together and they get wider as they come closer to you. So they're not going to be exactly, let's start with this one right here. And all I'm doing right now is building an approximate. When I do my artwork, I prefer my artwork not to be precise. I don't want precise. It's art. I want it to be fun and loose. So I'm going to begin like this and get a little bit wider as I come down. And then begin here. And then get a little bit wider as I come down. So this is skinnier, this is wider, and that's perspective, right? Because this is moving away from us. There, and then wider like that. So this is the idea. We're going to be drawing lines here with the ruling pen, okay? So this is going to come a little bit wider like that. This is going to come a little bit wider like that. That one was really wonky, but it doesn't matter because it's art. Okay, that's going in one direction. Now we need the ones going in the other direction, right? So let's do that. And then we're going to do this one. It's going to get wider. No, actually, this one's going to get narrower as it comes down. Because this part should be narrower, right? Okay. There we go. Don't mind me. My lines are not perfect. Okay. Now, I want to show you using the drawing gum because what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this with watercolors. And I do want to use an eraser and erase a little bit of these lines because there are going to be some flowers up in here. Do you see how the roses are up in here and some greens? So I don't want this to be too prominent in that area. So you can just erase it a little bit like that. Okay. And what kind of pencil did I just use? This is actually a Derwent Graphy Tint. And the cool thing is when you hit it with water, it actually turns into a watercolor, which is really neat. Okay. So now what we're going to do is put some of the drawing gum in order to create little spaces for these flowers. Okay. You'll understand as we get there. If you've never worked with masking fluid before, that's what this is. This is masking fluid. And what that means is it's going to preserve the space or preserve the white while we paint over top. Okay, it's latex based. If you are sensitive to latex, I do recommend that you wear gloves. If you're not sensitive to latex, you don't have to. But here we have this beautiful fluid. So let's put that beautiful fluid inside here. And in this case, I don't want to use a brush because if I use a brush, the hairs of the brush are going to get full of latex, and you don't want that. So you can use a toothpick. Actually, do I have a toothpick right here? Yes, I have a toothpick right here. So I can show you. But what I first picked up, this is a silicone tipped brush or silicone tipped tool. And so the cool thing is I can dip the silicone tool in there and then do the same thing that I would do with a brush here and just deposit it right into the well there. And then it's going down in there. And the neat thing is what drawing gum or masking fluid does is when it dries, it's just a latex film and you can just pull it right off. So it comes right off this this silicone. It doesn't damage the silicone at all, but don't use a good brush with it because this will ruin your good brushes. You don't want that. Um, Here I can also use the fat end of a of fat end here of the toothpick, and the same thing. I'm just getting it to go inside there, getting the fluid. There are a lot of different ways that you can deposit your masking fluid. I could actually just take this. I could just take this and put it on there with my toothpick as well. Just do this. So, but it just runs out very quickly if you do it with a toothpick like this. What I'm doing is I'm preserving the white. But if I put it inside here instead, then I can have a lot more movement. Let's take this. I want to wipe the side of that off. All right. Let's take our palette paper. Right now I'm getting ink out. I guess I hadn't completely cleaned it. Okay, now I'm beginning to get masking fluid. I can tell because the masking fluid is blue. I'm gonna have to put just a little bit more in there. So let's get some more on here. You could fill a Q-tip and then do it with a Q-tip also. There we go. There was a little bit of water in there, and so it had thinned it out just a little bit. All right, let's set that aside. And let's see if I can do some flowers. I'm just making some little flowers here, sort of random. It's where I want it to stay white after I have put my... So who in the chat has ever used the masking fluids? I'm looking to see if anybody says they've used masking fluid. Because this is such an easy way to deposit your masking fluid. And you don't ruin a brush by doing it. Okay, so I'm just doing random little designs. These are our flowers. Okay, so that's going to preserve the white of the paper there. And then I use it. Crazy Junk Art uses it. So I'm just sort of making some little flowers here. So Crazy Junk Art, have you ever used a like a ruling pen or drawing pen in order to apply masking fluid? I'm curious. Well, I'm curious if anyone in the chat has used something like this. So I'm just being very random. You see all the blue on there? So the blue is all masking fluid. And so the masking fluid is going to preserve that paper, the white of the paper, as we paint over top of it in watercolor. Okay. Down here a little bit more. Nice. Okay. Now when I'm done with this, I don't want to put it in my regular water. And the reason is because you do not want latex in your pipes, people. Nobody wants latex in their pipes, okay? I don't have a ruling pen, but I do have a vintage compass. Awesome. Okay, so you do not want to put this down your pipes. What you have to do is you're going to clean this out. So I'm going to take this and put it down inside here. I want to clean out as much as I can using the paper towel. See how the paper towel has all that blue on it? A Q-tip would work really well for this. Put a Q-tip in there until it doesn't come out blue anymore. And the cool thing is, because this has a pin that goes down in there, this pin down inside there for cleaning, you can use that to help get it out of the hole. So it will not gunk up the hole. Now, you can use water because the masking fluid is water soluble, but like I said, you don't want it going down your pipes. So what I do is I use a little cup. So just a little cup with water. So let's put a little bit of water in there. So I'll use a separate cup with water, and I clean out like that the fluid latex, right? So I'm getting the latex out of I'm cleaning it just like I would if I were using it with my brushes or my ruling pen water there. But I want to be sure. Oh, where are my? There they are. Hold on a second. Q-tips. So you put your Q-tip down in there. You get all that out. The thing is, once it's dry, once that latex is dry, it just peels off. But here I'm using a Q-tip to get down in there, right? And then I'm going to do the back end again. I'm going to go down inside there, make sure it's cleared out. And now what you're going to do, remember this goes in there, the store. What you're going to do with this water is you're going to pour it into a paper towel and you're going to put it in the trash. Okay? Do not put that water down your sink unless you want to have your pipes coated in latex. Because if it goes down the sink and then it dries and it's on the inside of your pipes, it's going to turn into rubber latex. And you absolutely do not want that. You don't want that. You don't want to have your pipes replaced. Okay, so that's the trick, is you always do the water cleanup of your masking fluid in a separate little container and then throw that into your trash. Do not put it down your sink. Okay? All right. Tell all your friends. Never pour the water from masking fluid down your sink. Okay. Now, remember how I said here on your, I like to use, cool tip, right? Stay home to shop. So I like to use these silicone tools because once this is dry, okay, I'm going to get up really close so you can see. You can literally just peel the latex right off. See that? Again! Oh my gosh! That's why I love using the latex. I mean these silicone tip tools with the latex because it just comes right off when you're done with it. That's another tip. I am just full of tips. Okay, so all these little areas now that are blue there are going to be your various flowers. It's going to preserve the white for you. So let's put the lines in. Yeah. And oh, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this, which is the palette paper, sitting here so that I can test my lines from my ruling pens. Oops. Okay, so we're going to create these lines of the lattice right here. That's what they're so good at. And let's use the medium-sized one. This is the one that I showed earlier. This side flips. There's a little catch right down here, and that makes it really easy to clean. Oh, love this. Okay, so we are going to use some of the India ink, and I'm going to use it from the dropper. I'm going to deposit it in between the two tines with the dropper. There we go. I'm going to flip it over. Make sure I've got it in there. The bottom is clean. And I'm going to make sure it's, whoa. Okay, I hadn't quite gotten that piece seated back into place. Now it is. And now I'm getting a beautiful line. So now I can use my ruler, wherever I put it. Where did I end up putting my ruler? Hello. Hey, ruler. Well, I have another one. I have like 50 rulers. Again, you want to use the edge that has the piece of metal on it there. So I'm going to work from the top here, and I'm just going to follow along with that line. I'm not going to get it exact because this is art and we're just playing. So I'm going to get it approximate. All right. Yeah. Hence the name ruling pen. I think it's just about out of ink. Let's see. Oh, look, I just got my fingers in it. So try not to get your fingers in it. Now, you'll notice I went right over top of the masking fluid. So that's fine. You can go right over top of the masking fluid. Just, now there's not enough ink left in there. There's a tiny bit left, not a lot. So I'm going to pick up some of what's left on here. But I'm going to go ahead and use the dropper. A little bit more in there. Woo. Let's test it, make sure it's working. Yes. I actually want to make it a little bit closer together. Here's my approximate line right here. Nice, I got a smaller line that I wanted. And then another line here. So this is how you're going to draw in your various lines. Easy peasy, right? Just try not to go over top of them like I did there. There we go, like that. And then what I'm going to do here is the edge of the window like this. Ooh. Remember, I'm using the flat side to go against that metal edge of the ruler. Oops, I didn't hold it right on the edge there. If I were being a little more careful, which I'm not, as you can see. Okay, and then here. Now, because I moved the ruler over to the other side, what am I going to do? I'm going to flip this over so that the straight edge is going against the straight edge of the ruler, right? Now I can see it's not flowing out, so I had to mess with it a little bit there. All right, there we go. I'm going to do this one again. I'm going to check it You check it to be sure there's enough ink, and you check to be sure the flat side is against your ruler. There we go. That's that part of the trellis. Now, normally, well, what I'll do is I'll come over here and then we'll do that part of the trellis. So let's do this. How long have you been on Whatnot? Oh, hi, Dave Spoke Collecto. I've been on Whatnot, I think just over a year. And I did a bunch of auctions of some of my parents' estate items. And then I discovered a fabulous artist community on Whatnot, and I decided to share some of my painting techniques with the artists on Whatnot. Okay, so normally I would use a heat gun, or I would wait a few minutes and then do the lines this way, but let's see. The nice thing about India ink is that it does dry pretty quickly, as long as it's not too thick. Okay, so again, flat side to the ruler. Make sure it's flowing. Come on, you can do it. Sometimes you need to just get it down at more of an angle. Okay, so when it's not doing it, you grab your, oh, interesting. Sometimes what'll happen is that your ink will get hard right in the tip there. So I'm looking for my X-Acto knife. So what I will do, hey Barbara, welcome in over and Whatnot. So I'll take my X-Acto knife and just go right in and sort of clean the tips here. Because sometimes the ink, as you're working, the ink just dries. It dries in the tip. And so using the X-Acto knife helps to clean that off. Because all of a sudden it was not coming out. There we go. Now a line is happening again. So now I'm going to flip it again. So I've got the straight edge there. Now it's coming out. Okay. We are back in business. There. Looking at it here, I can see that I still have ink in there. Draw it along. You see how I have the angle is really close to the paper? Okay, there's an approximate line right there. All right. We almost have it. We almost have the trellis. This is exciting. See, now I had to turn it because I realized I didn't have my hand in the right position and it was not coming out. So sometimes as you're doing it, your hand will shift and it won't be where you see the clear hole anymore, and then the ink won't come out. There we go. Barbara. Barbara's showing octopi and squids. Yes, ma'am. Okay, that line I drew kind of at a crazy wonky angle, so I'm actually going to, as long as I'm gentle as I'm doing it, you don't have to press really hard. You can press very gently. I can go right over top of, I can skip over top of those blue sections that have the masking fluid in them. Oh, I'm running out of ink. Now you can see over here, I didn't quite connect it, so I'm just going to use the tiny little bit of ink that I have left and freehand it. Okay, so now we have a trellis built, and I only have a tiny bit of ink left in the bottom of that. What am I going to do? I'm just going to do that. And now I want to do these boxes here, but I'm going to do them with a different color of ink. So instead of using the black India ink like I did for the window here, I'm going to go, reminds me of Back to the Future and retro 80s, right? I know, this is so cool. I love old equipment. Okay, so remember how I said I love this other set of set number 2 of the Bombay ink? One of my favorite colors is this Van Dyke brown. It's a very rich brown. And so that's what I'm going to use next. And what am I doing here? I'm going to put this down. So we're going to move the ink off to the side. All right, this is my palette paper. And I just did a rinse off. It's not completely clean, but you know what? It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Okay, did I shake that? Let's see. Shake the Van Dyke brown, make sure it's. Have you ever done batik, wax, and India inks? I have done batik, Barbara. Yes, I have. India ink. Um, I've done batik with paints, like acrylic-based paints before. Okay, so here, for those who weren't here before, like Barbara, this is India ink. So it's permanent when it's dry. And I just filled the end. I used the dropper and filled the end of the ruling pin like that. Now I'm going to, at a very low angle, make sure that it's coming out. And then I can set this aside. And what I'm going to do here, these are plant boxes. Plant boxes. So let me start at the top here. It'll be easier to do that. There's one plant box right here. And there's another line over here. So I'm just going to freehand those in. And then there's another one right there. And then I'm going to come to this side right here. Freehand that one in. This one's going to get a little bit more narrow here, because the perspective is we're going off into the distance. I'm going to, let's do this right here. I'm going to use this ruler as a guide, but I'm not going to put it down on the paper because this is wet. And I'm using the flat side here against the ruler just to kind of help me, guide me down here. There we go. Doesn't have to be perfect. If you were doing an architectural drawing, it better be perfect. Right. Okay. So here, I'm going to go like this. So if you weren't here earlier, there's a round side and a straight side to the ruling pin. And I'm using the straight side to go against the ruler like that. And it seems to work best if you pull it toward you at a steep angle as opposed to trying to push it. Okay. So let's do that there. And I am just about out of ink. Let's see. Ah! There's a tiny bit left in the tip. Okay, let's do this. I'm going to put a little bit more in there. Just load a little bit more. It's so easy to load with a dropper. And you don't have to have an ink with a dropper. Just get yourself a separate dropper. You can do that. Okay. That one come out? Yep. So these are little boxes that are holding flowers. And this is the edge of the road right here. See how I just did what I told you shouldn't do, which is go the other way. However, if you have a super light touch, like I barely laid it on the surface and pushed it, it's okay. It's going to gouge. Practice is vital, right? Yeah, or patience is vital. Yes, patience is vital. But if you are barely moving it like this, and it's super light, and you just have it barely touching the paper, you can move it in all different directions. It'll be fine. It's fine. Not to worry. You don't have to go up and down. There we go. There's those boxes. I'm just putting in the edges of the boxes. And now I'm going to freehand it. So you don't have to be drawing lines with a ruler. That's just if you want to get a little more precise in your lines. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to do that pot. Oh, now I'm going to do the pot in terracotta, right? Pots are terracotta, right? So if you weren't here earlier, I was showing these Bombay inks come in two sets, set number 1 and set number 2. And I happen to like set number 2 because it has the Van Dyke brown, which is this beautiful brown color. It has this tangerine orange, which is amazing. And then it also has over here terracotta. So if you're doing anything like pots for flowers or anything like that, the terracotta is beautiful. So let me do the terracotta. Let me see if I have a French, I may be able to use this French curve. All right, so do you all know what a French curve is? If you're doing drafting, you use things like this, called a French curve, and they come in all kinds of different shapes and sizes. The nice thing here is that I can, again, use this to go around the edge like this and get a nice continuous. If your inks are dry, can you revive them? No, you can't. Not this kind. These are permanent inks, Barbara. If it's a watercolor ink, yes, you can revive them. If it is an India ink, I don't know of any way to revive them. Okay, so let's, I just cleaned that. I'm going to use the terracotta. Now I can freehand this or I can use the French curve. Now, if you're using a French curve, I'm going to show you something. Oh, but wait. If you're using a French curve and you put it down on the surface like this, then you're going to get a whole bunch of ink bleed potentially underneath here. So what you need to do instead is you need to raise this up somehow. And an easy way to do that is with like a couple of old credit cards, or what I like is everybody has little sticky notes around, right? The cool thing with sticky notes is if you pull the back off the sticky note like this, you know what I'm going to do, right? If I pull the back off the sticky note, this is sticky, right? So I can just take that and lay it right there on there. And now that raised it up. And so now this is not touching my surface. And now I can create my curve and it's not touching the surface. Okay, so I'm going to go like that. Such great tips. Ah, thank you. Yes, where there's a will, we will find a way. All right, once again, I've got the India ink. I'm just filling my ruling pen like this by dripping a little bit inside there. Wow, that was quick and easy, the line on that one. Okay, so I've got my French curve going here, so I can sort of, that's if you want a little bit more precise curve, you know? You don't have to do this. I just wanted to show you how it works. Actually, I'm going to do it upside down. This way it'll be easier. I'm constantly turning my artwork around to make it work. Okay, there we go. Like that. So now I'm going to do the edge of the pot. And I'm going to do it just like that. So now you've got a beautiful curve there. And if I wanted to, I could do these beautiful curves. Of course, I normally would wait for that to dry. And what? It goes down a little bit further, so I'm just going to freehand it. It's okay to freehand. You can do it. Actually, I like to freehand a lot because I like to get multiple lines and have the lines all wavy, like for instance this right here. Just going to do it like this. It doesn't have to be perfect. There we go. So you don't have to use a curve. I just like using the curve. I've learned a lot of artist techniques. Thank you, Stay Home to Shop. Okay, so now while this is wet, I'm going to I'm going to be fancy. And I'm going to get in there with a brush. And I'm just going to whack it with a brush and let the color bleed. Why not? Here, I did all that work to get a beautiful line, right? And now I'm going to just make it bleed all over the place. There we go. For the heck of it. As long as it's still wet, you can go in with a brush and you can play with the lines. Okay, there's still a little paint in here, but I'm going to just clean that off. Oh, you know what? As we're doing this, I wanted to, I'm going to finish this off camera and that'll be the giveaway for today. But I'm going to do something similar to what we're doing here. There'll be a little trellis on there. Okay, let's see. If you weren't here earlier, the blue is masking fluid. So that's this stuff right here, masking fluid for watercolor. And I put it into this big writer right here. And made it easy to clean up. Okay, so let's go ahead now and use some watercolor on this. It's a beautiful thing. As long as this is dry, you can use watercolor right over top of it. While it's wet, if you get it wet, you see here, you can make it bleed. But once it's dry, so these are Beam watercolor paints. Such a resource of art knowledge. Thank you, Barbara. That's very kind. So these are Beam paints, BEAM. If you go to my website and then you go to the supply links page, and my website is dietzart.com, DIETZART.com. And then you go to supply links in the menu. I have a link to their website, Beam Paints. And it's a woman-owned business, and the lady is a indigenous person in the northwest of Canada. And they don't use plastic. So these are paper imbued with wax, and they call them paint stones. Is that cool? So instead of putting it in a plastic pan, they put it in something that uses no plastic. And then, of course, I put it in a little plastic container just to hold it. I like these containers because they have the clear top, but you can find these in metal as well, these containers. Okay, so I have a nice selection of greens. The first thing I usually do with something like this is I spray it. So you want to juice up your paints. You want to get them ready to release, right? And let me find a really nice watercolor brush. So this is a nice watercolor brush here. This is a Princeton Velvet Touch. So I have a link to those in my on my website under supply links as well. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to pop some greenery in here. So let's start with a lighter color and then go with a little more drama. So I'm just going to do some leaves. You know, the purpose of this show is to show you about ruling pens, which I did, but hey, you know, now we're going to have a little bit of fun. And I'm just going to put some leaves in. And here we have littler leaves down here. And then I'm going to show you removing the removing that masking fluid. Right. Okay, so we've got some leaves that are falling down over the bed here. Of course, I would use some brown as well. Let's get a little bit more of that on there. The color's going to get a little bit lighter as we go farther away, isn't it? a little more water in there. I have to cover up the areas where I put the masking fluid so you can see the whiteness of the little spots that get left. Okay. All right, that's fun. There we go. And then let's pick up another green. Ooh, this is a little deeper, isn't it? So sometimes with these paint stones, I will pick them up like this and hold them in my hand so that I have them closer to the artwork. And so sometimes that helps. And they're very convenient to use that way. So I'm putting the darker in the background here. I am not trying to be too, not trying to be a perfectionist, Emma. You have to make sure to cover up those areas where you have the uh, masking fluid. Okay, let's do another one here. I like this light green. This light green's very pretty. And yes, I double dip. I don't mind getting the same, the other color to sort of blend in. Okay, let's make sure we have plenty of green in there. Woo! Fun. This is one of the reasons I love watercolor is it's so quick and easy to lay down some color, and you don't have to be too fussed about it, do you? Oh, thank you, Barbara, for tagging some other folks. I appreciate it. If I were doing a full painting, of course, I would take a little more time at it, but we need to move along. Let's get some of this light green down in here where the light would be hitting it. Whew. Put some leaves out there on the trellis. In the actual picture that I used here, there were some flowers growing out of the top of the trellis too. I didn't bother to do that for this lesson, but if I were wanting to render that painting a little bit more, I would certainly go ahead up here and I would put some flowers up at the top of the trellis as well. Ooh. Let's make sure that I'm covering up the white so that we can pick that up. There's a rose right here, so I have to color around it so that when I pull up the masking fluid, you'll see it. That is the trick. You do have to cover. You have to cover up all the areas where you have your little white, your little blue marks in order for them to show up. And if you go with a darker color over top of them, then the white shows up more dramatically. Let's do this. What is this color? It is called, the neat thing is Beam Paints, they're, as I said, they're native to an area in Northwest Canada. And so they put their native language for the color as well as the color in English. Isn't that cool? This one's called Rainforest. Okay. Making sure I'm covering over some of those white areas some more. All right. It looks a little bit of a hot mess right now, but it does come together. I guarantee as you work. Right, Barbara? You know how that goes. There's always what we call the ugly phase of a painting, isn't there? And then the painting all magically comes together. It's like, how did that happen? What I'm doing here is I'm using like I said, rainforest is a dark color. So that white will show up underneath it. There we go. Oh, that's kind of fun. There you go. Now, let's find a brown. Ooh, I don't have a paper towel in my hand. What? Whenever I'm doing watercolor, I like to have a paper towel in my hand. There we go, because I'm constantly doing this with my brush. And actually, I can take these gloves off now because watercolor is not going to mess up my hands like India ink will and the acrylic ink. Okay, so here is another set of paint stones. Oop, sounds like my headphones just went out. So I'm going to turn off the air conditioning so you don't have to listen to it. All right, let's do the brown, a little bit of the brown of the boxes there. This is a beautiful color called Wet Grizzly. Wet Grizzly. Let me hold it for you like that. And it's a sparkly color, like the water sparkling off the hair of the grizzly bear that's all wet. It's a really cool visual there, right? Because they have grizzlies up in the woods there where she lives, the owner lives. So I'm just going to drop some of this brown in here because this is the wood of the box, right? Showing through some of that, the green of the leaves. There we go. Gives you the impression you've got a box going there. And there we go. This is why I love watercolor, because you don't have to do a lot of preparation in order to paint with watercolor. It's so easy. A little bit of water, brush, some paper, away you go. Ah, okay, that's a little darker. So I just want to give the impression of the flower boxes that are here. Okay, there we go. On the edge there. Nice. Now it needs to be darker in here because there's a shadow right there, right? Okay. I like having the guidelines of the lines that we drew. And then, you know, there's going to be some shadowing underneath here. Cool. Now I want to go a little bit more into the terracotta here. I have this color that's really pretty. I think it's, well, they call it Harvest. Harvest. So I just want to drop a little something in here. A little something in the background. Just to add a little more color in there. I can always go back and darken the color a little bit later. Just trying to give you a visual. And actually behind the trellis, there is some brown behind the trellis. So I'm just going to drop in a little bit of color there. For the heck of it. No, don't get green in there. Some rogue green was inside there. So you know what I'm going to do? Paper towel. Dab it up. There we go. Oh, some of that black is coming back up. Wow, that's interesting. Okay, well, we'll just go with it because that's what I do. I go with it. Okay, how about that? We built some interest there, right? A mistake. Consider it shading. That's right. It's what we do. Oh my gosh. It's so true. What is this one? This one is Cub Brown, you know, like the bear cub. So let's take the Cub Brown instead of the Grizzly. And we'll come in here. Since this is the bottom, can you all see that? Yeah, you can see that. So I'm just bringing some of the Cub Brown in here. Give it a little bit more dimension. A little dimension in here. Yep. Since there's some shading there. Okay, cool. So that's a little bit there. Let's, what I'm doing is messing around on the outside, waiting for this part to dry so I can show you removing the, removing the masking fluid. And actually, when you remove masking fluid, it helps to have a special kind of, it's almost like an eraser to do that with. So let me find that while that's drying for a moment. I have it here somewhere. Come on. I have a tray here that's full. Let's see if I knock the tray over, if everything is good. Oh, there it is. Okay. Hey, that's pretty good. So right here, this is called a rubber cement eraser. Okay, rubber cement eraser. And that is what you use. You can use your finger, but what I find is if there's any moisture at all on your finger, you're going to pick up and smush the paint that's here into the areas where that that masking fluid went. And that's not what you want to do, right? What you want to do is you want to make it so that the masking fluid is picked up. And so that's what this rubber cement eraser does. So let me see if it's where it's dry already. It's somewhat dry over here. Let's try. Now, I can hit this with a heat gun, so let's do that. That can help. So that can help to speed along your drying. You don't want to get it too hot, because what I've found is with masking fluid, if you stay in one place too long and you get it hot, it becomes gummy and it melts into your paper. And you certainly don't want that. You only want just a light amount in order to have it start to dry. Oh, did you hear that? More stuff's falling. Okay. Now, before I start pulling off the masking fluid, let me bring it up closer for you. There are little spots right here that you can see that are blue, that are peeking out from behind the green. And over here, and you can see that big flower right there. That is the masking fluid. So here with the masking fluid remover, I take it off, and then I have to remove that glue or that latex from the edge here. And I'm constantly removing the latex from the edge, because if you don't, it can carry some color with it, because of course you've covered over those areas with paint. And so sometimes that paint can transfer onto what it is that you're working on there. And you don't want that to happen. Let's see what we have here. A little bit right there. So there are little bitty bits of white that are appearing. And then the reason that I do that is I go back with a color, and I see those little white areas right there. I fill those with color. I'm preserving the white so I can go back and draw in my flowers. Sometimes if it's daisies or something, the white, and I've filled the whole background, the white actually is just revealing the flower itself. And sometimes I do that with masking fluid. That works extremely well if you're doing, what are they called? Dandelions. The dandelions at the time when they have the little spikes on them that are flyaway, oh my gosh, that is so fun to do the little flyaway wispy parts with your masking fluid. Okay, let's see how dry this is over here. Oh, it's picking it up, picking it up. See, if my finger was even the slightest bit damp, I could mess up the whiteness here that I'm revealing. Okay, let's see here. How did I do there? So you can see a few little white spots in there. If you look at the painting here, you can see the pinks and the purples and the yellows. So that's what I would go back and fill in those white spots with. I don't want green to be there because if I try to put red or pink on top of green, what happens is I get mud, I get dirt, dirty colors. I don't want that. I want clean colors. Okay, so it looks like I picked all of those up. Now, you'll notice here, and you'll notice here, where's the other spot? Here. See, that's where I gently went over top of the masking fluid with the line of the ruling pen, and it so it preserved the white there. So that as long as you're lightly pulling your ruling pen, you'll be able to do that. You'll be able to have that. Okay, let's see. Some of these areas are still a little bit wet, but we're going to risk it. This area looks like it's dry. Okay, can you see the reveal? I put a lot of masking fluid here, so you'll see a big reveal here. Oh yeah, there we go. So see the big reveal from the masking fluid? Let's see, is this dry enough? Sometimes you can dab it with a paper towel like this to get any excess off of there before you go and try to remove the masking fluid. Oh yeah, there we go. So again, these are super cheap. This little, don't use a regular eraser, okay? Don't do it. This is a regular eraser. What'll happen is if you use the regular eraser, it literally will start to erase the paint off the surface. And you don't want that. You don't want it, all right? This is made for removing rubber cement and for lifting masking fluid. So it attaches itself to that latex, and then you pull it right off, the little bits of latex. All right, let's see, where else do I see some? It's wet there, so I'm not going to try. Oh, there's some wetness here. Come on, y'all. There's some here that's dry, some here that's dry. Oh yeah, now you can start to really see because the flowers are bigger, right? There you go. There. All right, awesome. And then we're going to come back in and put some color in the flowers. This one, see if it's not quite dry yet. Oh, you risk getting color in the white area. I got that one with the skin of my chinny chin right there. But now you can see. And there's one here. Nice. And I don't know if there's one underneath there or not, but I'm not going to. That's all wet, so I'm not going to risk that. All right. Oh, here's one down here. Sometimes you have to run your fingers over it to see if there's any, make sure that it's dry before you do that, to see if there are any bumps that you might have missed. Like here's one right here. Okay. Let's see if there's any more here. There's something right in there. Okay, and that'll help you to get up all of the bits because you don't want to leave the latex on there. Is there any latex in here? There we go. All right, good. Good, 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 good. Nice. All right, so now you can see those white areas that have been preserved, and that was using the drawing gum masking fluid and this guy right here to use the end to make that. But I could have also done it with the ruling pen. If I saw a video, there's a cool video on YouTube where there's a lady that was showing how you can use the ruling pen with the masking fluid to do you make a spider web, and then you just cover the whole area up with wishy-washy browns and grays, and you let it dry, and then you just pick up, you go in and you pick up the spider web, and then the spider web is white and it looks amazing. Amazing. All right, let's get creative with some of our other colors here. And I can just use the same brush. And so what do we want to put in there? We want to put, ooh, this color's pretty. So I'm just going to come in here and put some color in where that white is. You don't have to cover the whole white. You can get a little creative. And just this way, I'm just highlighting that I have some flowers here, right? Because it's better if you don't have the color going directly onto the green, because green and red makes brown, and you don't want your flowers turning brown. There we go. A little bit more color here. And let's just bring it in there, bring it in there. Okay. That's some interesting shapes. So now we've got, now I would probably do more than one layer. I would let that layer dry and then come back in and intensify some of the color. But let's play with a little bit of the purple and the orange down here. Actually, let's spray this because I want to juice it up a little bit. So I love this purple, but it is intense. It's intense. So because the purple is so dark, I'm going to dip my brush in water first, and that will help to make it more juicy. And so, oh, it's still too dark. Look at that. Look at that. Still too dark. Okay, there we go. Picked up some of it. So it'll show up as purple. Now I can use a paper towel and pick some of that up, and then it doesn't look quite so intense. So these are some petunias here, purple petunias. So we come in those areas. Oops, too much. See why I say I always have a paper towel in my hand? Because I need to be ready. I need to be ready to come and grab some of the water from some of those colors. Oh yes, the purples are so pretty. Let's go in with some of the orange. And some of the orange. We'll drop some orange in here because the purple and orange look pretty together. So this is very loose. I like to paint loose. I don't like to paint, tight or realistic. I think I said that on my last workshop. I was like, I am not a realistic painter. I don't enjoy it. It's not what I want to do. I like things that are more suggestive. And so something like this is more suggestive. All right, let's do some of the orange, but now I'm going to use a palette because I don't want the orange to be so orange. As you get further away here, as you go further away, what's going to happen? Your colors are going to fade. They're not going to be as bright, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of this yellow in with this orange. And now it's still orange. It's just not quite as bright, right? Okay, there we go. And the same can be true of the purple. Well, let's put a red in. What the heck? Let's do a red. This one's called Turtle Belly. This red that I have right here. Is that Turtle Belly? Let me see. Yep, Turtle Belly. And so I like that color. I like that color. I like that color. It's kind of an orangey red. So we'll do Turtle Belly. And we'll, oh yeah, a little punch of red in there. Fun, 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 fun. So in those areas where I preserve the white, I'm just going back in and popping in a couple of flowers. There we go. I actually want to put some red down here as well, just for the hay of it, right? That's why it's okay when you're building your leaves, if you leave some white space, it's okay. White space is good because that's where you're going to go back in and pop some of these fun colors like this. Okay. Now, remember how I said this is, you wait for it to dry and then you can come back in here and drop some more intense color in. So let's see how intense the color, yeah, see that? It's very cranberry-like. But now that there's already one layer, if you come in and you put another layer, it's going to intensify the color. So now it's getting darker. All right. Nice. Of course, I with a painting like this, you can come back in and work on it more and more and more. Actually, why don't I put a little bit of color up here since I have it in my palette. I'm just going to drop a little bit in there for the heck of it. All right, so let's take a look at that for you. Ooh, you know what? I want like kind of a gray down here. So let's get something. Let's do kind of a purpley thing. What's the opposite of purple? The opposite of purple is yellow. So let's get some yellow on our brush. And let's get a little bit of purple on our brush. And then see how it turns sort of brown? Purple and yellow make a brown. So I just wanted to do something like that. And then we want it a little more purpley as it gets close to here. There you go. Okay. That's it for now. I think I'm done messing with it. But you can see how you can use your ruling pens, this kind and this kind, to your advantage to draw in those straight lines or draw in things, architectural elements. Don't be afraid to do curves and use the French curves to help you. Make sure that you have either some palette paper or a blotting paper next to you. And then also, have some fun with lettering with these, using not only the straight line to get your straight lines here, but do it off to the side like this. And that allows you to get these really jagged and fun lines, thicker like that, and your little happy accidents like this and like this. And then practice doing this when you have a little bit of ink in there, and that will give you those fun spatters right there. Now, if I wanted to spatter on here, I could take the brush. I'm just going to show you a little bit of spatter. Get some yellow on it, And whether it's a ruling pen or the end of a brush like this, then you just want to tap it like this, and that will give you your spatter. Just be careful because spatter tends to go everywhere, so make sure you're not working on top of something that is precious. You don't want to work on something precious. But there we go. Now we got some spatter on there just for interest. Okay, are there any last minute questions? Because otherwise this class is over and we can start the giveaway. I'm watching for questions, comments. Oh, I'm going to leave these open so that they can dry before I put the lids back on them. I did show you how to do those, right? If I wanted to come back in here and do some gold or some silver, I could load up. I showed you earlier with the brush. I could load it into that little well and then go in and put my touches of sunshine wherever I wanted them with that. Thank you, Salmon's Girl. Salmon's Girl said, pretty. I appreciate it. These supply links will be in the video on YouTube after the YouTube video is rendered to YouTube. Then I go back in. I'll go back in later tonight and I'll add the links for the items like the this eraser and this this type of pen, writing pen, and then the ruling pens. So there'll be links in there in the description of the video on YouTube for those items. And of course, if you came late, you'll be able to re-watch what you missed, either on Whatnot. You'll be able to watch what you missed in past shows, or feel free to pop over to YouTube and it'll be saved under the live tab. I did mention earlier that you can use these ruling pens also to put on gilding paste. So this is what you put down, and then where's one of the pieces from my last workshop? I did a workshop where I showed you how to apply metal leafing like this, and mirror foil. And what you apply it onto is a glue called a sizing. And this is a fluid sizing that you can put into your ruling pen and then go along and create precise lines. So if you want to have specific lines or specific spots where you want to put your glue and your glue sizing, you can use a ruling pen with that as well. Similar to what we did with the drawing gum masking fluid. Okay. All right. Let me go ahead then and get the giveaway going. Now, what I'm going to do for the giveaway later tonight, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to use the ruling pen. And with these, this is acrylic, but it's acrylic flowers. Let me go ahead and get the giveaway going. Givey. This is going to be a greeting card that's going to come out to you. So it is running. So jump in if you're interested in that. And what I'm going to do is using the ruling pen. This is sort of a flower motif in acrylic. And I'm going to be able to use watercolor to go over top of it. The watercolor will settle down into the areas in between the plastic of the acrylic. And I'm going to draw a trellis using my ruling pen, something like that. And then that way you'll have a little trellis card using the ruling pen, some watercolor, and acrylic, and that will be your card. I'll probably put a little bit of gold sparkle on it for you too, just because I love sparkle. So thanks to everybody who jumped in on the giveaway. Let me go ahead and move this out of the way. That was fun. I like my my little boxes. How close did I get? Not completely close, but hey, I'm an impressionist, you know? I like to do things that are an impression. As I said, I'm not reproducing this exact image. I'm doing something similar to that image. And that was fun. That was fun. All right. Let me get the first couple of things that I'm going to auction tonight. I'm not going to auction for too long. It turned out to look gorgeous. Oh, thank you, Stay Home to Shop. Well, let me leave that there while I while I go ahead and get my items for tonight, which are my. I'm not going to spend very long because I'm leaving on early Tuesday morning to go to Chicago and meet with some folks at Blick and show them, do a razzle dazzle and show them some paint. So I'm excited about that. And I have more packing and preparation to do for that. That is always fun. Okay, so let me get my pods here. And if you weren't with me last week, that means you didn't see some of my new greeting cards. Oopsies, that looks like that's, yes. Okay, so let me just do a handful of greeting cards. The greeting cards I have in my, thank you for the lesson. I look forward to it every week. Oh, thank you, Gabriel Lee. Yes, of course.